what we do in the midst of this sin-sick age that has rejected the gospel and perverted the gospel and replaced the gospel with that which is not the gospel is that we call out that wickedness. We call it by name. And we remind people of the good news of the gospel again and again and again until it tastes sweet to them. There's a man, and he's walking with his son through a strawberry patch, and he walks through the strawberry patch, and he takes a strawberry and eats a strawberry and gives the strawberry to his son, and the strawberry is good, beautiful, perfect, sweet. But something happens strawberries over time, and eventually strawberries are taken in and they're chopped up and used in other foods, and they're put on top of cereal, and eventually strawberries are made into strawberry preserves and into strawberry jam, and eventually strawberries get messed with and processed and put inside of things like Pop-Tarts. Eventually you get into laboratory where you have the essence of strawberry without strawberries. Eventually, men don't take their sons to strawberry patches anymore to give them strawberries. They go and get them strawberry slushes that don't actually have any strawberry in them whatsoever. It's just a combination of chemicals and colors and high fructose this and that, and the kid loves the strawberry slush, and he gets used to the strawberry slush. And then one day, the kid who's grown to love the strawberry slush that has no strawberries in it is walking through a strawberry patch, and he picks up an actual strawberry and eats it and doesn't like it because it doesn't taste like the slush. Brothers, I think that's what we've seen happen to the gospel. As I survey the last few decades, I can remember how there was the recognition of a loss of the gospel. There was a recognition that the gospel had begun to be messed with and tinkered with. There was a recognition that things like the church growth movement and other movements like that were shying away from the gospel. And all of a sudden, in response to that, you had gospel everything in this attempt to recover the gospel and put the gospel at the center of everything. And then all of a sudden that became a fad. The gospel became a fad, and there was gospel this and gospel that and gospel everything. Gospel bake sales. But interestingly enough, as gospel became a fad and attaching gospel to everything became a fad, the gospel was being lost again in the name of the gospel. And there were things that were called gospel because that was the fad, but they had no gospel in them whatsoever. And then fast forward, and gospel has become everything, which means it's become nothing. And then people start saying that things are the gospel that aren't the gospel. And all of a sudden, things that are implications of the gospel and maybe fruit of the gospel are being identified as the gospel. A classic example of this is what we've done with social justice. We've gone from social justice as a gospel issue to social justice is the gospel. Racial reconciliation is the gospel. These things are the gospel, but actually they're not the gospel. And ironically, for the most part, they are law, which is the opposite of the gospel. And then when you stand up against that, I don't know, maybe have a statement on social justice and the gospel, hypothetically, you get attacked by some of the same people who were claiming that their desire was to recover the gospel. And something else has happened. There is a generation of young Christians who, when they actually hear the gospel, don't like the taste of it anymore. We need gospel clarity. We need to confront wickedness like this. We need to recognize that this is an attack on the gospel and on the God of the gospel, and we need to make it clear. One of the most pathetic, sinister, and demonic aspects of this entire movement and this spirit of this age is that it robs people of the life-changing truth of the gospel. It says that people who find themselves in circumstances like those in which I was found need something other than the gospel. And even worse than that, it says that it's offensive and racist to say that the gospel is what we need. No, what I needed, what you need, what everyone who hears us needs is the righteousness that is found in the gospel. The righteousness that flows from the gospel. The righteousness that transforms individual lives, and in transforming individual lives actually does transform families, actually does transform communities, actually does transform nations. So what do we do when we find that our child walks through the strawberry patch and no longer likes the taste of strawberries? There's a couple of things you can do. One, just keep him out of the strawberry patch and keep giving him slushies. Or two, stop giving him slushies. Take him to the strawberry patch again and again and again until strawberries begin to taste sweet. What we do in the midst of this sin-sick age that has rejected the gospel and perverted the gospel and replaced the gospel with that which is not the gospel is that we call out that wickedness. We call it by name. And we remind people of the good news of the gospel again and again and again until it tastes sweet to them.